Yo, 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 what is going on? This is Josh with American AF Dumpster Rentals in Dallas. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the channel. I am super, super excited for you guys to be here today. Today, I have got a special one. This is the episode 1 of the new podcast, American AF Dumpsters Trash to Cash. So, welcome. We're going to be playing this on YouTube, and we're also going to be taking the audio and uploading it to pretty much all the major platforms, hopefully Spotify, Apple, and all the podcast platforms. So make sure that if you have a favorite platform that you like, make sure you go over there, you look up American AF Dumpsters Trash to Cash, and you hit follow because it's going to help the channel. It's going to help us grow. It's going to help us really help each other and help you guys out and bring you some pretty cool content like we have going on today, like we have scheduled for today at least. So again, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you smash the notification bell and follow us. This podcast episode 1, is going to be all about transforming your business journey from trash to cash with tips, strategies, and stories that's going to help you scale up, prepare for growth, and even plan for that big exit strategy. That's something that we all got to think about, guys. What is your exit strategy? Whether you're just starting out right now or whether you're 5, 10, 15 years down the road or into your business, you really got to start thinking about your exit strategy. What is it? What is your goal? What is your end goal? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to prepare your business to sell? Are you trying to prepare your business to hand it down to your children? Are you trying to just close up shop, get a certain amount of money and close up shop and just sell everything off? You got to have that planned out. You got to have that in the back of your mind at all times. And you've got to kind of prepare your business and grow your business with that in mind so that everything that you do, every decision that you make ultimately will help you reach closer and closer to that goal. Excuse me. So with that, I have got a special guest here. His name is Ken Lucci. I have known him for several years now. It's probably been a few years. He helped me sell my last business, and I have remained friends with him up to this day. So I want to introduce him into this industry, and he's going to give us a ton of value today. So without further ado, give me 1 second. Let me bring him onto the channel. Ken, are you there? Can you hear me? Oh, hold on. 1 second. Let's see here. There we go. Ken, can you hear me now?
Yes, can you hear
Welcome,
me?
welcome, welcome. Always technical difficulties. Episode 1.
Hey, listen, by episode 5, you'll get it all down, maybe even episode 3. Piece of cake.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. All right, man. Well, thanks again for being on the channel. I am so glad that you decided to accepted to be on here with us and kind of help us out, share your knowledge with us. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're, what you do, where you're from, and about driving transactions.
Sure. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I started my first company at 15. That was in the security industry, burglar alarm systems. Sold out when I was 25. Went to work for one of the largest regionals in the country. Helped them grow their sales. Then went to work for a national security company. After that, I went into the medical alarm business. I've fallen and I can't get up. Built that business and sold it. That was my second. Then somebody talked me into getting into the limousine industry. That was my third. I got into the boutique inn business. That was my fourth. And then this is my fifth, driving transactions. After I sold my limo company, a lot of people asked me to help them sell theirs or help them buy other people. So I went back and took my finance courses and took a accounting refresher. Then I get certified to do business valuations in the space through Sage Valuation software. We're members of the Mergers and Acquisitions Institute. And my business partner has a degree in corporate finance from Penn State. He's the real deal. He's the brains of the operation. In this space, we've right now we focused on passenger transportation. We've reviewed the financials of over 250 companies. We have some great data. We've helped. We valued about 100, and we've helped about 30 people exit. We've sold 30 companies. We also know pretty much all the transaction details in that transportation space. We're anxious to get into other spaces because we are certified. to do valuations. And we also have a finance course, which teaches entrepreneurs how to keep their financials. It's tailored to the transportation industry, but we really want to tailor it. We believe we can do anything with rolling stock, anything with vehicles, anything at all. That's just what we like because we kind of perfected what we call the cost of goods model in that space, which tailors your financial statements, your P&L to transportation industry, so that you know what it takes when you turn the key in the morning. You go out to do a drop, you do a pickup, you dump it off, and then you go home to the yard. What did it take for you to do that? What gross profit is left over for you to pay yourself, pay your overhead, and then make a profit? So this is really, I appreciate you letting me talk trash. We love doing financial analysis. We love doing valuations. And part of our plan for driving transactions is to move into other space. And we're excited to be here.
So you touch on a lot of things there, but at the end of the day, like coming from myself as well, coming from the limousine industry into this industry, there's a ton of similarities. This is mainly like
Yes,
a logistics play. It's all like,
it
scheduling,
is.
just being more efficient with one vehicle. How can
It
you
is.
get those wheels a turn, right? Same thing in the limousine
Yep.
industry. So I really think that your transition, if you do focus more on this industry as well, it's all the same. It's at the end of the day, it's all numbers. It's all the same. It's all trying to be more efficient with the vehicles that we have to make more money at the end of the day, right? So I think it's pretty similar.
It is. And, when we talk this through, small business owners, all, in my opinion, suffer from the same issues, right? They become experts at logistically doing the business, getting customers satisfied. In the limousine industry, it was making sure we did the pickups on time, make sure the passengers are happy, you do the drop on time, etc. In this space, it's kind of similar. Interesting, issues in small business are most small businesses fail, about 80%, because they have poor financial management or they have poor cash flow. So what we do really does fit. We like to know the metrics and learn the metrics of the industries that we're involved in. We just started looking at the towing industry as well, and we're doing a couple of financial reviews for people and solving specific problems that they have. So yeah, we're excited to, and I agree with you. There's lots of synergies. I'm a little jealous and envious because I don't think your passengers complain
Mhm.
the vehicle's not on time.
No,
I don't think the trash complains. So that's one of the benefits.
no air conditioning problems, no Bluetooth problems, none of that stuff. I mean,
Absolutely, but
it's
good acquisition opportunities in the space.
absolutely. So good topic because that's what we want to touch on next. I want to focus on a little bit talking about. Excuse me. First step is, or the first part of the podcast or this interview is going to be more about, if a company like myself or guys like me, medium sized, small, I would say small companies that they want to grow quickly, right? I've been looking at acquiring other businesses. I've been looking at acquiring other dumpster companies in my area. If we wanted to grow quickly and we do that by acquisition, what do you say? What is your opinion on the key factors that us as a buyer should consider when evaluating a potential acquisition?
So I'll step back a bit. When I was in the security space, I was involved in 29 acquisitions. My last position before I got back into this business was opening up a call center based on an acquisition in the security space. Acquisitions have to fit two categories, two different types. Vertical acquisition, meaning you're going to buy a company that operates in your industry but provides a different service, or it's complementary, but very similar to what you do. Same logistics. In your case, it might be portable toilets. It may be compactors. It may be the different segments in the same industry. And the goal there is to increase efficiencies by using your infrastructure, right, and offering more services and diversify your profitability. The second is what's called horizontal acquisition or strategic acquisition. That involved purchasing a business that operates in your industry and does exactly the same thing you do. That's designed to give you an absolute bump in your revenue immediately and an economy of scale by being able to use your same infrastructure, same staff, resources, physical assets, etc. And again, it expands your market share and usually eliminates competition. So, a couple things. Any acquisition you look at should be what we call accretive, meaning that it should make a profit from the day you buy it and on its own. You want the acquisition to pay for itself. And here's what I mean. You want to be able to make sure it makes it, after you buy it, it makes an operating profit and you're able to pay down any debts you incurred by buying it. So I'm a big believer in an acquisition P&L, even if you have two companies and they do exactly the same thing. During an integration, during the transition, you want a P&L that's separate. And the idea is it has to be profitable from the day you buy it. It has to show a profit and pay its debt service. If you took out a loan to buy it or you borrowed money from somebody, it has to do those two things. It has to make a profit and then it has to pay its debt service. The beauty is, after the debt service of the acquisition is paid off, that's where you start making some serious money. I also wouldn't rule out seller financing. Always develop a financial pro forma on the transaction. And we do this all the time. We call it a buyer transaction calculator. And even if we're selling a business representing the seller, we do this as part of the transaction for both parties. The buyer sees it so that the seller knows what they're getting paid if they're seller financing, and or if they're borrowing the money, if it's an SBA or if it's a private lender. Everybody knows that the business can make the payments. The second thing is it has to make strategic sense, right? If you're going to buy something, if you're going to buy it outside your market, would that put a stress on your original business? Whatever you buy cannot stress, whether it's financially or staffing or infrastructure or even culturally, it can't stress out what we call the mothership, your existing business. The next thing is don't fall in love with the deal. There are deals that happen all the time. Don't fall in love with the deal. Negotiate the best you can. Follow it's a pretty straightforward process, and do your due diligence. And here's what I mean by that. You find a company, it's advertised on Biz Buy Sell. The first thing you want to do is, if the documentation, I don't care who does the documentation, you want to make sure that what they're saying as they present the business for sale is actually true. That's what's called the due diligence process. Most important, accurate and clean financial statements, filed tax returns, and operating within the law. And it's funny, I have a checklist, or I have an article I'll send you that's on exit strategy, but it also will help you on acquisition. Are they operating within the law? Are they employing people legally? Are they complying with regulation? Most important thing is the business profitable? And here's the problem, Josh. A lot of these companies, small businesses, have created a great lifestyle for the owner. But if the owner exits and stops doing the work, in an acquisition, you have to figure out, you have to add that cost in. So let's say a guy's got, you know, I don't know, 3 routes, 5 routes. They have 25 customers, and this guy is out Monday through Friday as the owner. Okay, well, wait a minute. Unless Josh is going to do that, Josh has to hire somebody. So that needs to be put in the financial pro forma, right?
Mm-hmm.
So any acquisition has to make a profit from day one. I also want to caution you, when you look at an acquisition, don't do a lot of heavy lifting trying to say, well, if I cut this expense, or I cut this, or I use this for my office, it'll make a profit. No, it has to demonstrate that it's made a profit in the past. When you remove that owner, you got to make sure that you're able to use that money, that savings, either to pay employees or pay down the debt of the acquisition. By the way, love growth through acquisition. The key with growth through acquisition is to learn the best practices. Going in as the buyer, don't think you're the know-it-all. Learn the best practices that they've had and integrate them into your business. Also, listen to what's taking place and plan for disruption minimize the disruption. Don't change the prices that crazy to begin with. Make sure that the staff is on board, but always plan for attrition. We used to, in the security space and in the transportation space, we plan on 10% attrition, right? The key with doing a financial pro forma on a business is we can do what we call an attrition pivot, which says, holy crap, if I lose 10% of this guy's business, I'm not going to make a profit, right? That's a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could say, wait a minute, I can afford to lose 15% of these customers and I'm still going to make a profit. I'm still going to be able to pay this thing off. Make sense?
Absolutely. So many things that you touched on. But when you say don't fall in love with a deal, I mean, there's so many times that you see a deal online that says this company has the potential to make this amount of money, or just make a
Very
couple
good.
tweaks and you can, you'll be able to, have, 30, 40% profit. But that's not, if it's not in the numbers, it's not in the deal, right?
Correct. And what you're describing, okay, excellent point. Sellers should not expect to be paid for the opportunities that the buyer creates. So let me say that again. A seller that's run a business for 30 years and it's been running and it's $1 million, okay? When you built your business in a very short period of time and you're already doing a million,
Mm-hmm.
okay? If somebody says to you, this business is worth X because if you do these things, you can make Y. Wait a minute, that's on you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the buyer's opportunity that's created. So sellers should never, ever expect that. What the seller should expect to be paid is a fair, reasonable multiple of cash flow or multiple of EBITDA. That's the way these businesses trade. So, damn good point. Don't fall in love with that. By the way, brokers say that all the time. If you do the following things, you'll actually make a profit. Here's what that is. That's a workout. Meaning, if you're buying something that's never made a profit, that's actually what's known as a workout. Those are good too, but here is the key. If the guy has lowballed his services, you don't want to buy that. If a guy is so far out of the market, okay, you may just say, I'll pay you a commission, but then you walk in and you ratchet up the prices because he's killing the market. So you're doing yourself a service. I've done that in the transportation space. I did that in the security space, but I didn't pay. All I did was do what's called an earnout on that deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what you're talking about, acquisitions, or when you acquire a profitable business and you fold it in and you make efficiencies by using your overhead, your infrastructure, your staffing, your assets. A workout is when somebody's business basically was failing or it was just literally providing them with a subsistence, just an existence, no real, they didn't create any personal wealth. Those are good to buy on an earnout, but those are turnarounds.
And by earnout, you mean what?
Pay them a commission over time.
Got it.
Basically, here's what I mean by that. Okay, you walk into an acquisition, it's been presented one way. It's been presented as profitable, right? But then you get in there and you figure out the only reason it's profitable is because the owner's not paying themselves any decent income. They're driving the truck, they're doing all the work, and they're basically making peanuts. Okay, well that's not profitable because the guy's not he's not taking into account his opportunity cost and what he should be paid for doing the job. If a business is profitable because it's not paying the labor to do the work, that's not a good thing.
It's not a
So
business, it's a cost.
I would say to that person, look, you got a pretty decent book of business here. I'm going to come in, I'm going to have to make some fixes. I'm going to pay you a commission over time. Okay. Now, some people don't like that. Some people won't go for that. So, in those cases, the seller needs to understand that they need to fix the business before it's sellable. The other thing you could do is you take on that business and you say to the seller, look, I'm going to give you a deposit, but assuming that this amount of business stays, I'm going to make a second payment and a third payment. But it's conditional upon the revenue staying or you making the changes. Here's the biggest key. If someone is not making money because they're lowballing, the best thing you can do is try to get them out of the market. And when you bring it, and that those are earn out deals. Those are deals that say, look, you've got $1 million. I expect to keep 700,000 of it, and I'm going to make three payments as long as that 700,000 is still there.
Mm.
The problem is, believe it or not, the statistic in your mind is 80% of small businesses fail because they're not profitable, okay, to begin with. Now, here's another statistic: less than 30% of small businesses ever below a million ever sell to third parties. Believe it or not, if it's less than 3 million a year, it only goes up to 35%.
Mm.
Those are stats from the International Business Brokers Association we belong to. So why is that, Josh? Okay, usually number one reason they don't sell is they weren't profitable. That's the number one reason they don't sell. Number two reason they don't sell is because something that they said they advertised was not true. Or you walk in and you find the business has major problems. So those statistics are important to when you consider acquisitions. I mean, the reality is you're probably going to buy, or you're probably worthy of buying, are probably less than 4 out of 10 that you would look at because they're maybe crazy on their price. There's fatal flaws in the business, or they've never made a profit.
So you bring up the 80% of businesses. I also I've heard 1 in 12 businesses that are actually for sale end up ever selling. I mean, is that, and
Correct.
correct me if I'm wrong, it's not like, I guess a lot of people compare it to the housing market, right? Like housing and brokers. When they think about a broker who, you talked about earlier how you kind of sometimes when you will do reports for both sides of the deal just to get the deal done. It's not like
Right.
you are representing the seller or you are representing the buyer, but you can work on both sides. And
We could do analysis on both sides and provide it to the bank or provide it to both sides. As the seller, if you're taking back financing, you want to make sure that this guy, there's a financial pro forma that says he can actually pay you. By the way, about 60% of deals that are done privately have some seller financing component to them.
because it is, and correct me if I'm wrong again, but it is a buyer's market at the end of the day because there's not that many buyers, but there's a lot of people selling, right?
Always a buyer's market. It will always be a buyer's market in the service industry. Okay. The reality is, if you're in the software business and you have something that's really, really special, it could be a seller's market. But in the service business, it's always going to be a buyer's market.
Interesting. Um, Now, speaking of financials, why is it so important, would you say, for business owners to maintain proper financial records, even if they're not thinking about selling right now?
Well, our moniker is we provide services to help you buy, borrow, or sell. Grow, buy, borrow, or sell. Okay. Any strategic decisions that you have to make, you should start with what your financial condition is. Okay. I have this saying I say with my clients: profit solves problems. So somebody comes to me and says, geez, I'm sick and tired of working on the weekends. I need to hire a manager. Great. You're profitable. We can do that. You can afford to do that. So the answer is financials really will help you make, excuse me, accurate financials that are tailored for your industry, where you know the healthy financial metrics will help you make every major decision. You want to go out and you want to acquire a company. My first question I always say to people is, are you in the financial condition to do that? Are you profitable? Do you have liquidity, cash liquidity sitting on the side? Or are you knee deep in debt right now? Okay. So my first answer is financials are going to help you make every decision. Second of all, it will help you borrow money traditionally. If God forbid, you want to expand your business organically, you've got to be borrowable. You've got to be traditionally borrowable. A bank, your local bank and credit union, and actually I just did an article on this. That's where you need to get the money. You're not going to get the money if your financial record keeping is not up to speed. And it's simple stuff. Financials in QuickBooks kept by a qualified bookkeeper. Here's one key: separate out your major revenue silos so that you can track your costs and know your gross margin for each service. So if you decide to go out and you decide to do construction trailers, and then you have contracts behind businesses, you may have a route. You want to make sure you know the gross margin so you know where you're making the most money. That's the key from a financial perspective. That's one of the critical metrics that you should know. You should know the cost to provide every service, every expense to drop it off, pick it up, dump it, rinse, repeat. Gross margin is very important. You should keep your financials in the proper order so that you have revenue, cost, gross profit, overhead is general administrative expenses. It's your telephone, it's your office, it's your administrator, it's your logistics software. Cost, it's simple. What does it take to turn the key, deliver, drop it off, pick it up, dump it, repeat, and then bring the vehicle back at the end of the day? What are those costs that you just did that? Your overhead is also, your facility. It's your software, it's your computer. Um, in addition to that, financially, you need to keep accurate financials so that you know what to pay yourself. Okay, if you're the last person to be paid and you're not taking a W-2 income, your business really isn't profitable. It's got to be able to pay you a real decent W-2. By the way, you should be separate on your P&L. Because Josh, what if a national company today walked through the door and said, you know what, we want to open up in Dallas, we want to open up, we want to buy your business, we want to use yours as a base of growth, and they make you an offer you can't refuse. They're not going to buy your business unless your financials are up to speed. Accurate monthly financials is what allows banks to lend you money, and also it is required when you exit. And it's not that difficult, guys. It's not. Absolutely not.
I think that's what a lot of people worry about. Being especially a younger, not me. I'm a little older now, but younger entrepreneurs just starting out the business and all that stuff. They're using their personal credit cards or they're using their personal debit cards. For their fuel. They're just trying to make ends meet, and they think it's all goes in the same account. It's all going into their pocket at the end of the day, but they don't realize how bad they're actually like hurting themselves long term. Because they, like you said, they won't know their numbers. They don't know what it's actually costing them. So they're just either, pulling numbers out of what competitors are charging and not really charging based on their actual costs. It's just, I
Oh,
think
absolutely.
it's
Listen, I invite you guys to, didn't mean to interrupt you.
go for it.
I invite you guys to go to our website. There's a free webinar. It's called Seven Mistakes. And it's seven my financial mistakes for the transportation business. But I'm going to tell you, every single one of them is germane to the trash business. Okay. Seven signs that you're having liquidity problems. Number one, you're spending more than prior periods, more money than the income is decreasing. You're late paying your vendors. You're using personal credit cards. You're not paying yourself. You've got credit lines, but you can't pay them down. You're consistently spending more. That's the big deal with financials, keeping accurate financials. And I mean, you can get a bookkeeping service for a couple $100 a month if you're a small operator.
Mm.
The biggest key to me is fi- accurate financials basically close out your month, and it tells you how much is left over. Your bank statement, your bank balance can't tell you that. Just because you have cash in the bank doesn't mean you made a profit. You could probably have 5 bills sitting there for the same period of time that you delivered the service. You had all this revenue, but you've got unpaid bills there. You don't have enough money to pay it off. You didn't make any. You didn't make enough. You didn't make a profit. That's what it comes down to.
Yep. What would you say are common mistakes I guess business owners make during an acquisition?
Oh, well, first is falling in love with the deal. I got to do this deal. No, you can't. You've got to adopt the philosophy that if it works, it works. It was meant to be. I mean, I'm not a big faith guy, but at the end of the day, if it doesn't make sense, if it wasn't meant to happen, if you don't have a realistic seller, It's not going to happen. Okay. First and foremost, follow a process and get good advisors, get good advice. Bring in your accountant, bring in a lawyer that's a transaction lawyer, and do a due diligence. Look at, without question, the most important thing you can do is validate their financials. Okay, so they give you, if they don't have financials, you forget buying them. Here are 12 bank statements. That's not enough. You want to look at file tax returns. You want to measure them against the internal QuickBooks financial statements to make sure that they match tax returns and QuickBooks. Then you want to review. We go back and we look at 12 bank statements to make sure that they're pretty similar to what the financial statements say. You're always going to have some timing differences, but do your financial due diligence. Secondly, you do your operational due diligence where you're making sure you can live with their prices, live with their terms, and that there's no surprises there. Like there's no I do 1 million a year. Okay, well 300,000 of it is with a contractor that at the end of the day you're doing for cost because you think it's a volume, right? It's a volume play. You've got to make sure you do an operational due diligence and drill down. How do you do that? You look at the top 50 to top 100 clients. I always say that 80% of the revenue is going to be with 100, 50 or 100 clients. You have to look and make sure that the pricing for each one of those, and if there's contracts in place, you've got to review the contracts. That's kind of the legal side of things. The other piece is make sure that they're operating within the law. That's the legal piece. Are they employing their people legally? Are they complying with regulations? Are they, you know better than I, are they dumping illegally or are they skirting the regulations?
Yeah, so the whole operating legally is kind of a big one for our industry because there's lots of cities that it's unlike the limousine and transportation industry. Lots of cities don't require permitting, but there's
Right?
lots of cities, especially in my area in Texas, right, all of Texas, that say a certain company cannot operate in a city because they have a exclusive agreement with one of the big boys, Waste Management,
Yep.
Republic, all that stuff. So that's something to look at a lot, especially in our industry.
Absolutely. And you're not going to get that unless you do an operational due diligence. So financial due diligence is simple. Tax records, financial statements, bank statements. Make sure that they all jive together. Your operational due diligence is to look at that customer list and the process is you always sign an NDA, you always sign confidentiality agreements. They should at least be able to provide you with, if they don't, I don't want to provide you with customer names right now. Well, that's a problem because you signed an NDA, but certainly at least the cities that they're in to make sure that they've got proper permits and licensing, or they, if they've been operating underneath the radar, I can guarantee you that when you buy it, it'll come to the surface.
So let's hypothetically, my exit strategy is 10 years from now, right? Let's say
Yep.
10 years from now, I would want to exit this business and I would like to get as much as I can out of my business right now. What would you say are things that I could do to improve the valuation of my business aside from keeping proper numbers or keeping doing the proper, financials?
Okay, so I'm going to send you an article, and it is absolutely it's essential. It's what makes a business sellable. I'm going to run down the list. The first and foremost, it should be sustainable without Josh. If all of the clients do business with Josh and call Josh's cell phone and know Josh, there's going to be a disruption.
Hmm.
And the idea is they should be doing business with your brand, and you have to demonstrate that the business has a sustainable structure, financially strong, solid internal systems, even if it's paper, but I prefer everything to be software driven, solid internal systems, qualified people that will stay with the business, right? And they're doing in I know that you're doing a lot yourself right now, but ideally when you sell this business, you're either going to be selling a lifestyle job, right? If it never gets any more sophisticated than it is, and that will be a small multiple. Or if you turn this into a company, you're going to get big money. Sustainable structure, great financial performance, internal system, qualified people, and you have to pick what you want to do. Ideally, always keep the money, always the financial processes within hands, but start delegating as you grow. You grow the business so that it exists beyond you. Strong market presence with a stellar reputation. Make sure that your brand gets well established. You're doing great. I already see you're doing great things with your brand. Differentiate that as long as you have a good reputation in the market, that's going to help you. I do think diversified services and contracted customers are really going to strengthen the value of the business. So if you can find other complementary services, absolutely without question, offer them as long as they're using your existing infrastructure. Scalability potential does help the value of a business. If you get it to a certain point and that fits your lifestyle, great. But you want to show a buyer that the business has scalability potential. I can't stress operating systems and staff that know what they're doing beyond you, because at some point, Josh, you're gonna the key thing is, can this business survive? First, can it survive if you take a week off? Second, can it survive if you take a month off? And then you've got something to sell when the thing runs without you, so to speak. It runs and you are less important than you are today. Accurate financials and consistent financial performance. Don't look to sell the business if you've never been profitable or you're not taking out income. Financial data that's been consistent sells businesses. You've really got to be profitable for a good solid 3 years to put a business on the market. Also, make sure you comply with all your regulations, adhere to every possible law, even the ones you don't like. Make sure that all your OSHA, all your labor laws, permits, etc., every governmental compliance. Make sure you're employing people legally. I mean, if you go to sell a business and you say to somebody, "Well, I pay these people in cash," that's just not going to fly, because they have to make a major change the day they buy the business, or they're going to stay operating illegally. It's going to hurt the value of the business if you're not paying people properly legally.
Hmm. That there was, and personally speaking, in our deal, there was some. We didn't do anything illegally, but there were some employees that didn't go on with the new buyers and stuff like that. So I can see where a lot of that stuff, you know, you have to, we were able to operate the business without us being like hands on, but then there were certain things, and it goes into the next question I want to ask. But what, as far as like the transition process, how do you help the buyers transition into the sale? How much does a seller, how involved is the seller in the transition after the sale, if any at all? I wasn't involved really at all, but I had a pretty unique buyer, I believe. I don't think that's normal.
So ideally in acquisitions, there's always a transition period, a short period of time where the seller is expected to show the buyer, basically show them around, show them how to operate the business. I like to say show them where the bodies are buried, but show them all of the unique day-to-day processes. That's usually 30 days. After that, you're expected to be able the buyer is supposed to be able to use your likeness and your name for a period of time. Okay, so why is that? uh, they're going to basically want to make sure they limit disruption. So once you've shown them how to operate the business and the idiosyncrasies of the business and how to operate every asset that you sell them, whether it's how to open the garage door or how to turn the lights on or all the processes, that's 30 days, and that's usually part of the deal. After that, they should have the ability to use your likeness and your name for 12 months specifically, based on your approval, to any correspondence to customers. And in addition to that, there are companies in your industry that do consulting agreements that if a business is big enough, they're going to want you to stick around on a consulting basis, either to attend large customer meetings or intercede if there's any kind of a problem. But that is usually compensated over and above an acquisition transaction price.
Interesting. Interesting. So when you say in your likeness, does the buyer have to grow a beard? Or no
No,
further
they
beard.
don't. But you know what? You've built yourself an unbelievable brand down there, even with what you're doing now. I mean, this helps you in the marketplace. You know, I businesses that like I always say this, say tell people this, tell people this. If you're if you ever want to sell your business, the first thing you can do is make sure you have clean books and you're profitable. The second is to make sure you have a strong market presence and a stellar reputation.
Mm,
You've got to be on Google page one when we were in the limousine business. And I would think the same thing in your business. You've got to be on social media and accessible on Google page one for when people want to find you. You've got to know who all the big contractors are. A sellable business is when somebody comes into your market and they encounter you constantly and you've got the best customers. That makes you a sellable business, along with accurate financials, accurate documentation, operating legally, etc.
yep. Yep. So one thing we didn't touch on, and I kind of want to rewind just a little bit, is financing options. What kind of financing options are there for the typical buyer? Do they have to have? I know you talked a little bit about owner financing or seller financing, but how much money do I need to have down for, let's say, a 500,000, $1 million purchase, things like that? What do I, is it like buying a house? Do I need 20% down, or do I need more?
It
What?
it varies. I'm going to tell you the most important thing you can do if you ever want to acquire is your primary business needs to be traditionally bankable. You have to have a traditional banking relationship locally. Okay.
Mm,
And we actually just worked on a package for a company. We got all of their financials in order. We did a 3 to 5 year business projection of their primary business. And we did that because they wanted to buy a building. Okay, well, the same thing is if you want to buy a business. You have to have your financials in order first. You have to have a business plan on your own business. And in this case, I would say all of these assets that I own, I'm producing this much revenue. Without buying any more assets, I can produce this much more revenue. So get a relationship with a local bank or a local credit union. Local banks, large banks are usually going to lend on buying assets like dumpsters. They may specialize in that, or they lend on commercial trucks. On an acquisition, you're going to have three possible lenders. One is the seller themselves. Okay, based on the statistics, about 60% of small businesses have some sort of seller financing. The second is your local bank that already does business with you. They may, first step, get a credit line. Second step is give them your business plan, tell them what you want to do, and see what they will lend you on a credit line. Okay. Or when you do an acquisition, if you can show them a pro forma, will they lend you, let's just say, 60% of the transaction? So that would be your answer. I would not look at an acquisition until I had liquidity in my business that was extra capital, and or I had a credit facility. The people that'll tell you that you can get zero down deals, forget it. It's not going to happen. At the very least, you should be looking to have the cash to buy the physical assets, the trucks, the dumpsters, etc. And then seller financing may be for a period of time, whether it's 2, 3, 4 years. Sometimes they go out 5. But I would say seller financing typically, seller's going to want at least 50% at the day of closing for something, whether it's the fleet, whether it's trucks, assets, etc. But the third is SBA. Now, the SBA will lend. They lend first to minority and women. They have very favorable programs. But the second is any small business owner. Um, I shouldn't have said it that way, but minority and women typically get to the top of the pile. But the SBA is designed to lend to small businesses. Okay, well, what are you going to have? Your financial house has to be in order first. your personal finances should be in place. You should have a good credit, personal credit. The SBA is going to look for collateral, but it may be your business assets. So get your financial house in order. I would try to work with SBA resources now and find out who your local SBA lenders are now and see what they tell you. Some of them are pretty aggressive. I will tell you, SBA takes a lot longer. And as far as that business acquisitions, about 30% of them have SBA financing. It's called the 7A program.
Oh,
7A,
that's
yeah.
30%. I would have thought it was more than that. So
No,
30%
you know
only
what it
about.
is, Josh? A lot of people they don't qualify. They have no collateral. If you've got a really good, solid business and you've got a few $100,000 in assets that are paid for, that's damn good. That's a damn good track record.
Mm,
The bank knows, hey, listen, this guy's got trucks and dumpsters that he may own a piece of land, etc. So a lot depends on where you are in your business. If my business didn't have a good solid foundational footing, I wouldn't look to acquire to solve the problem.
right.
That's a misnomer. You've got to be standing on your own, making profits on your own. The best acquirers are the ones that are financially sound.
Yeah. And both sides of the deal have to be SBA approved, right? For a deal like that. I mean, it's not just on the buyer, it's also on the seller too, right? Because the deal has to be approved
Oh,
for the sale.
the seller's
Excuse me.
taxes, absolutely. Seller taxes have to be in order. Seller financial statements are going to be in order, etc. So it's both sides.
Gotcha. Um, besides what we've already talked about, I mean, and your website. So your website is a good resource, but what are there any other online resources, tools that you can recommend or that you know of that would help a business owner who's going to be preparing for a sale or a purchase?
Well, I would if I was in your shoes, I would try to get involved with every industry association I could, or the major industry associations, and learn from the most successful. That usually you have to separate out some of the people that are not successful, but learn from the most successful. Subscribe to any industry newsletters, any industry magazines. In addition to that, the SBA and your local bank are a pretty good resource. In addition to that, I'm a believer. There's a website called Biz Buy Sell. We have access to the platform when we advertise businesses, but they have an unbelievable downloadable that is a great guide to selling your business. It's generic, it's general, it's going to talk about some of the things that I've done, but Biz Buy Sell would be another one. The other thing is, don't look in your industry for someone who's the most experienced M&A person, financial analysis person. And again, we're trying to get into other industries, but we've made an unbelievable name for ourselves in passenger transportation. And talk to people who've already sold in this space. It's interesting. My family's from Massachusetts. The guy that was our dumpster company sold out, and he sold to a regional player. So I would get involved with the national associations. I would try to find regional companies that maybe not your competitors that might mentor you in the process, and and again, and talk to people who've actually sold their businesses. But at the end of the day, live with the statistic that only under $1 million, less than 20% of businesses sell. If you're between under 3 million, it's about 30%.
Mm,
And why is that? There's two types of businesses. One is a lifestyle job, and the other has become a company, a sellable asset, right? The lifestyle job is where the owner does everything, and that may be attractive to people, may be attractive to somebody who wants to stop working for corporate America and they want to take over your business. But those businesses don't, lifestyle jobs don't command a tremendous amount of money at the time of exit, but a company does. And a company has all of the things I talked about. It operates by the law. It has flawless financials and documentation. It has a strong financial performance. It's grown and it's profited. It has operating systems and experienced people. It has written policies, procedures, and the enterprise operates efficiently and not simply because the owner barks out orders. Okay, the company is scalable. The company has contracts with customers. It has diversified service. It's well known in the marketplace. And most importantly, that structure is sustainable under a new person, right? Like this business that I have right this second, I have a business partner. He's getting certified to do mergers and acquisitions. The kid's got a better college degree than I do, but we're getting him certified and so that the business will stay on if I choose not to work 60 hours a week. But at the end of the day, this business is not sellable if it's only me, if it's only a lifestyle. So you've got to, again, company versus lifestyle job.
Mm, that's that's some good stuff. I mean, what's funny is years ago when you kind of reminded me of this story when we were talking earlier, but years ago when I in the limo business, about 5 or 6 years in, we looked at possibly getting our business evaluated, and we hired a company that was well known in that industry at the time that did the evaluation, and it was about a 2 3 month process or something like that. I don't remember exactly how much, and they came back with a big old book, a big book of what our valuation of our business was. They did a whole thing, a packet, and it was almost a slap in the face at the time to me. At least I felt like it was a slap in the face because I think us as business owners, especially ones that we live in our business, we eat, sleep, and sweat our business. You know, it's just all day in and day out. We have a picture, we have a number in our mind that our business is valued so much, and at the end of the day, it's just a numbers game. And if you're talking about a real valuation, it's not necessarily um, what we think. It's our baby. It's our, we think it's our baby. We put so much time into it, and we think our business is worth so much. But at the end of the day, it's assets, it's branding, it's all that stuff that you were talking about earlier. And I think it's important for a lot of people to really come to terms with, to find out. It's important for people to really know what their business is actually worth on paper versus what we think it's worth. A lot of people think it's worth a lot more than what it actually is. Um, and I don't know if that's a service that you offer, but I think
Sure.
everybody should, at all times in their business, should know what their business is worth. It doesn't have to be every single year or every 2 3 years, but if you're 4 or 5 years into your business and you want to know what your business is worth, you probably should know what it's worth on paper and what you need to do to grow it. And that's what we were talking about today, or to value it more down the road. Um, because it's really important. I mean, again, every decision that you make growing your business should be based on what your end goal is. Not I don't. Every decision should be also made as far as like what your numbers are telling you. Just because I want a new truck doesn't mean I should go out and buy a new truck. Because if my numbers aren't saying that I can afford it or I can withstand a new vehicle without any more dumpsters, then I shouldn't do it. So um,
Well, there's
it's
a
just
few things. You bring up a very good point. Is number one, it's an emotional thing because you've created it.
mm,
But you have to try to remove that. We have a saying internally that we only work with ready and realistic sellers. Okay. The ready seller is not someone who says, well, I'll sell if I get my price, because frankly, it's that never happens, right? So we don't make proactive phone calls to find sellers. The 3 or 4 or 5 of them come to us on a weekly basis, and then we determine whether or not they're actually ready to sell. The ready is, I definitely want to exit. The realistic is knowing what the values are in your industry and understanding that what sells the business is financial data, and it's black and white. It's black and white. You bring up a good point, and why do I stress this? Every buyer who comes in is going to, if they're worth their salt, whether they're a competitor or somebody from outside the industry, is going to say, can I recreate this business from scratch for less money than this guy is asking me for? Okay. That's where the realistic comes in. And some people never get there. It's the reason why only 20, 30% of businesses ever sell because the sellers are just unrealistic. The most realistic sellers I ever met in my life were people that paid themselves very, very well. They were able to buy real estate. They had done everything that they wanted to do with the business, not that they still weren't in love, but the business was getting in the way of their life experience. The
Mm.
best sellers that I ever dealt with took money off the table every single year. They paid themselves well and they invested it elsewhere. The worst sellers I've ever dealt with are the ones that are have to sell their business in order to fund their retirement. That's a huge problem. I run into it. It's heartbreaking every week. The worst thing I run into are people that look upon us to deliver a huge pot of gold to fund their retirement. A small business is listen, we all want to create wealth. But if you're looking to create wealth just purely by your end game, by cashing out, it's not going to happen. It's just not. So you have to pay yourself well over the years, take money off the table, invest it elsewhere. One of my mentors in business started a Vanguard account 15 years before he wanted to sell his business. 15 years before, he just came to the revelation, I'm going to pay myself a decent W-2 income and I'm gonna take money off the table and invest it. By the time he wanted to sell his business, he had $15 million in the bank, and he basically said, "I don't give a shit what you do with it." Meaning, sell it. I want it. I want to get the money out of it, but I don't need it for my retirement. I want to get a good value for it. But the pot of gold at the end is, and you bring up a damn good point. It's just there's a lot of misinformation, and a lot of it starts because small business owners are so busy working in their box that they don't look at the outside what's happening. They don't bring on strategic advisors. They don't bring on mentors. And that's it. That is a recipe for failure. I can't tell you how many transportation companies that have said to me, "I want to sell," and then when we look at their documentation, they're not operating legally. Their financials are a nightmare. They can't produce they can't produce anything but a reservations report. They've never made a net ordinary income, and they've never paid themselves W-2 and then had the business make a profit after that. So, you know, to me, I was always of the thought process that you grew a business and every day to prepare it for sale. Every day, if somebody walked through the door, the business should be in order so that it can operate without me, and it can operate with all of the financial documentation right then and there. And I know it's not easy because our game is trash, right? Our game is not finance. Our game is to grow a trash business. But you as the owner have to know the basic financial metrics of the business. If you're expecting your accountant to do it, all he's going to do is tell you whether you made a profit or a loss and how much you owe in taxes, right? You've got to know yourself. Wait a minute. How long can I keep that dumpster? What's the maximum I can charge, and how many turns do I have to make in order to maximize how much is the rental in order to maximize that asset? When is that dumpster going to be paid off? Should it be paid off in 4 months, 5 months, or does it take longer? These are the metrics that the industry that you're in, the best operators are going to be able to share them with you.
That's where I believe, and this is, I mean, between you and I, but obviously everybody watching, but that's where I believe this industry lacks is, like the limo industry had a fact book, right? A book of facts every single year that would come out, the NLA would, where it would say what the average limousine was. There's just, this industry is very antiquated, it feels like,
Yep.
compared to, and I was also in the security industry. I want to talk to you a little bit about that off topic, off camera, but
Yep.
previous to my limo industry, I owned a security company, a little bit different. It was security guards and patrol
Yeah.
services, but we did a lot of alarm
Yep.
response and stuff. But
Yep.
even that industry, we just had a lot more facts out there, a lot more data that you can get. It just seems like there's not much out there for this industry. Um, and the real reason is because this industry is controlled by the top players. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
100% controlled. It's a stronghold that they got. So,
oh
uh,
yeah. Reminds me of the motor coach business. Only I think it's a lot worse.
yeah.
Yeah.
So having new people coming into this industry and offering these type of services that aren't part of them is new, I guess, to this industry. So that's why
Well, but I want you to think about something. That gives you a ready buyer. If
it's
you've
true.
got It gives you a ready buyer if you're building yourself a profitable business. And I know of those companies. They have a lot of acquisition strategies. I would also suggest creating a peer group. I think what you're doing here will eventually be a peer group of people that will get together on Zoom sessions, or they'll get together on Facebook, and they'll just want to talk trash. I
Mhm.
love the market because, and we talked about this, it doesn't it doesn't complain. It's not a passenger that's going to complain. Their credit card's not going to work. Or if there's an accident, now you have a personal injury issue. To me, I love the logistics aspect. You master that in the transportation space. It's a big part of what you're doing now. The beauty is that fixed asset that you have, that dumpster's not going to wear out. Even if
Mhm.
it comes into you correct me if I'm wrong, even if it's a dumpster fire, you're going to just sand it down, repaint it, and redeploy it.
Exactly.
So I like the model, and but at the end of the day, don't compete on price. Compete on knowing your cost structure. Certainly know what your competitors are doing, but don't lowball price. Low price is absolutely a race to the bottom, because you're going to find a year from now or 2 years from now you don't have any profits to buy more equipment to scale. You don't have any profits to pay yourself anymore. You don't have any profits if something bad happened and you didn't have liquidity set aside. So yeah, I think what you're doing here is terrific, because I do think you'll create a community of people that want to get together and share their own experiences, and find that regional player, find that older person who's successful, and pick their brain. I love the market. I love the model. The beauty is, unfortunately, we will always be producing trash. We have to do
Hmm.
something with it. So, I like it.
Absolutely. Ken, we've always had awesome conversations, which is why I thought that you would be so cool to be on this channel with us and share your experiences and your knowledge, dude. I really appreciate you being here. Tell everybody watching one more time or listening one more time where they can find you at, what your website is,
Sure.
and how you can help them.
Drivingtransactions.com, uh, right behind me. And we have a webinar that's a free webinar. It was built for the transportation business, but I guarantee out of those 7 mistakes, you're absolutely going to say, holy crap, this applies, this applies, this applies, this applies. And I'm also, Josh, going to send you the article I talked about, which is, are you building a lifestyle or are you building a company? It's titled, all companies are businesses, but not all businesses are companies. And it will
Hmm.
give you an idea of how to get serious about, creating a real company that is sustainable, that you can sell, God forbid, if something happens. I'll send that to you right now.
Love it. I will have that in the link below for you guys who are watching, and for those of you guys that are listening, it will also be in the description. Ken, any last words? Anything else you got for us before we end it?
I'm excited for you. I think you're doing a great job. I would encourage, anybody out there, just shoot us an email, and we would certainly like to review what you've got financially, and hopefully we will be developing things for your industry. But I think it's a really good market. Is again, profit solves problems. So at the end of the day, make sure you're paying yourself well, make sure that you're not always the last to be paid, and build a company that's sellable. It's all part of the American dream.
Somehow find a way to be an authority in your market, and that I always felt like that was always something that I try to do. Just be an authority. Make your company an authority in whatever you're doing. be like the go-to. So
Listen, you're right. There was a back in way back in the day, and I'll leave you with this. I joined the Rotary Club, and there was a guy in that space, and he said his name was Tom, and he said, "My name is Tom. I'm in charge." That's how he introduced himself. And the guy, every in Middlesex County, Massachusetts, that guy had construction dumpsters, and I believe he did the porta potty business, and people knew him, and he grew a really good brand. You're doing it. I see your trucks, I see your logo, you're doing a great job at it. But you're right, become an authority in your market, become the go-to person when people have trash problems. You're the one that's going to solve them.
love it. American AF Dumpsters. Ken Lucci, thank you very much, man. Truly, truly appreciate you being here, man.
All right, good luck.
We'll talk
Talk
soon.
to you soon. See ya.